Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to call the meeting of the Richmond City Council for Tuesday, November 14th, 2023 to order. I have a motion on the minutes. Is it seconded? All those in favor, opposed, carried. Any agenda additions or deletions?
None, your worship.
Okay, then it comes to me to make a series of appointments. And just to explain what I'm going to be doing here, I'm not going to go through each and every one of them. I'll only highlight where there's a change, and there's only, frankly, about one change. After we made the appointments, they will be distributed. There should be a list of them over there if you're interested in looking to see who's on various committees. So we have appointments of council members to external regional organizations. I'll make one motion as set out on the sheet. May I have a seconder?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, opposed, carried. Standing committees, again, they're on the sheets. They are the same as the first year of our term. No, we don't need a motion on that. Then we have appointments of members of council and their alternates as liaison to city advisory committees and organizations. In this one, I'm making the one change, which is to appoint Councillor Galanders for Council School Board Liaison Committee in place of Councillor Hobbs. So may I have a motion accordingly? Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor, opposed, carried. Members of council as liaison to community associations, may I have a motion? Moved and seconded. Discussion, all those in favor, opposed, carried. Appointment of members of council as the liaison to various city boards. Moved and seconded. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Appointments of members of council as liaison to various societies and companies. May I have a motion? So that's moved and seconded. All those in favor, opposed, carried. And then we have the appointment of the parcel tax roll review panel. And the recommendation is the same as last year. Moved and seconded. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Then we have the acting mayors. Again, it's as set out on the sheet. The order is the same as last year, but I've had to slightly change the dates to suit the context. May I have a motion? Moved and seconded. Discussion on that. All those in favor, opposed, carried. May I have a motion resolving the committee of the whole to hear delegations on items on the agenda? All those in favor, opposed, carried. Okay, so we've got a number of parties who have pre-registered, and I'm going to go through them first. And once we do that, then we'll see if anybody else wants to speak to anything else on the agenda. So the first one, all the pre-registered ones are on number 22, which is the Alderbridge extension of the contract. Esfandiar Bakhtiari, please come forward. Have a seat there. And introduce yourself, and you've got 5 minutes.
Yeah, my name is Esfandiar Bakhtiari. I came to Canada 25 years ago, almost 25 years ago. And the second year, I moved from Toronto to Richmond. My family stay here, my kids grow up here, my grandkids is here, and all of us stay in Richmond. And I never leave Richmond because Richmond was always safe, clean, and drug-free for our family. But recently, I can't see Richmond like before. Since the modular home came to our neighborhood, I'm not against them because they are like us. They are people, they are human, and they deserve to have shelter, good food, good health care. But on the other hand, they have some responsibility. We cannot provide the food, shelter for them, and tell them that be a good neighbor inside and we don't care outside. All of us, we have kids. And none of us tell our kid, as long as you're good inside the home, we don't care what you do outside. We watch them, we raise them, we lead them, and we train them to be good people. Since these people are there, every single day we have break-ins, we have druggies around us right in front of my building. I can show you the picture that they're using drugs. They're passed out right in front of our entrance, and we can't do anything with them. When we say we have breaking, some of the counselor tells that, okay, invest on better luck. This is not our answer. Or they say that they need shelter. That's why they break into your garage. This is not our answer. Someone should do something about this behavior. As long as they're a good neighbor for us, we don't mind them to the city. But I don't want to walk my 2-year-old grandson that asks everything that what is it, what is that. When I walked him to the Mineru Park, show him that these people passed out, and he asked me, who's that? They are using drug. Needles are everywhere in our neighborhood. Recently, in past couple of months, I worked with Uber. And you know how many times I pick up drug dealer and one of the druggies just half a block from the modular home and drop them at the Richmond Center close to the place that they cash money. It happens couple times for me. And I hear inside my car that they are dealing with drugs. In East Hastings, I pick up some passengers. It's 5 minutes ride. And I ask them, why you don't walk? And they say, because we are scared walked through East Hastings. We don't walk anymore. I don't want to see the city of Richmond Center, 3 years from now, be the second East Hastings, because I want to live in this neighborhood, and I want to keep it as good as it is. And these are my concerns. You know, they have to be responsible for their behavior. We sent you a video last week that we are facing every day, but after 30 seconds, you said that, oh, it's disturbing. We tried to show you some slides today that we are facing every day, and you said that it's sensitive materials. But we are facing all of these disturbing things, sensitive materials, break-ins, every single day in one of our buildings. And we never, ever had these things before. We have our statistics that, okay, it shows that before the modular home come there, how many calls we had, and right now, how many problems we have every single day. Each corner of our neighborhoods, there are druggies, there are passed out, there are needles, and we don't know what to do. This is city's responsibility. When you bring them here, you have to make them responsible. You can't bring them here and leave them and tell them, okay, neighborhood, the rest is up to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Oops. Yeah, each delegation is given 5 minutes, so thank you, sir.
Okay.
The next delegation is Sarvanaz Bakhtiari. So like the previous speaker, you're given 5 minutes.
Sounds good. Good evening, and thank you all for your time. My name is Sarvanaz Bakhtiari. I'm a resident of Richmond for 20 years and a member of this specific neighborhood since 2008. I'm not here merely as an individual, but as a representative of my community, just as you are representing the city of Richmond. While we acknowledge the importance of contributing to those in need and ensuring stability, our concerns about maintaining a harmonious neighborhood seems to be overlooked. As a community, we do not dispute our responsibility, but we also believe it's critical to ensure that the tenants, the residents, and their associates at the Alder Bridge modular housing complex do not disrupt our neighborhood. Unfortunately, it feels like our pleas are just being disregarded. Since 2019, and more so in the recent months, there has been a noticeable surge in break-ins, thefts, violence, drug use, and vandalism that we have to see on a daily basis in our building and the surrounding area. When I'm personally walking around my neighborhood, I constantly have to look over my shoulder and be on guard. I've witnessed drug abuse outside the modular home, and I feel like our home and neighborhood is supposed to be our safe space. When we provide, again, video evidence illustrating our daily struggles, it feels like our concerns are dismissed. And we are showing you and voicing you on our concerns, and the response is very disappointing. I would like to ask the city the following. What measures are in place to ensure that the Alderbridge housing complex is effectively managed by Rain City to prevent disruptions to the surrounding neighborhood? What long-term strategies does the council have in place to maintain a balance between providing support for those in need and safeguarding the security and well-being of the surrounding neighborhood? I personally am tired of the empty promises by Rain City and councils and having the blame and responsibilities placed on the neighborhood to deal with these disruptions on our own. As well, I don't want to have the same conversation the next 3.5 years. It is the city's responsibility to address these issues and hold Rain City responsible for their operations. The modular home lease is expiring in a few months, and I'm asking the council to take this time to reconsider the extension or reduce the extension lease period and gain a deeper understanding of the operation by Rain City and ways to improve. As well, its impact on the local community and developing strategies to mitigate the negative effects caused by the modular home that we have had to experience and witness since its placement.
Thank you very much. Okay, the next speaker is Clifton Jang. And after Clifton is Caden Poe, so if you could be ready. So Clifton Jang, are you here?
He's not here.
Oh, then we'll go to Caden Poe. And after Caden Poe is Sheldon Starrett. So if you could be ready to go.
Good evening, Mayor and Richmond Councilors. I'm Caden Poe. Today, I'd like to use my time to share and read to you a range of personal experiences from people in the neighborhood that have been affected by the TMH. So just for context, these stories and comments were in response to the What Happened to Richmond video that was cut off when it was shared here last week. So even though it was decided not to play the full video, I'd still like to encourage the council to watch it in your own time, because at the end of the day, it's still the first-hand experiences of the people living in the neighborhood. That being said, I'll start with the comments. So the first person, I live in this area, and yes, this did start happening when the temporary modular home was installed. I look forward to that place being removed. We were told 5 years, and that means next year. Next person, ever since they built the modular housing unit, my 2-month-old was attacked by a woman who called her an expletive, again at 3 months and again at 4 months after a doctor's appointment. The guy who was beating the pay meter screams without fail, F or F Chinese, F Indians, F Koreans every night, waking up my baby at 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning. Over 13 packages were stolen from me, and 3 of my bikes have been stolen in the last 3 years. I used to feel safe walking with my babies before this housing unit was built, but not anymore, with needles, trash, urine, blood, and people glaring at me and my daughters. In fact, I had to take antidepressants because I could not leave my home for fear of being attacked again. Next person. I actually live in one of these buildings and am familiar with most of the incidents. The vast majority have been proven to be linked to the modular housing close by. Each incident is reported to police and shown to those working at the housing to determine if they recognize the individual as a resident or a friend of the resident. The video is merely to show the horrible actions taking place, nothing more. Next person. I know Richmond's been getting bad, and I'm glad this video is showing it. My apartment has been having lots of petty crime, window smash, mailbox break-ins. Cops need to be able to lock up criminals, but unfortunately, they're too quick to be back on the streets doing more crime again. The TMH definitely brought more trouble. If one of their residents are caught doing any crime, they should be evicted. Next person. I thought there was an upcoming vote about it. If they house people who are trying to get better and were on the path to it, then sure. But the current occupants cause so much grief and problems in the neighborhood. I know exactly which parking lot the Chase was in, and I live 3 blocks away, and it's just as bad. I bet every apartment has the same exact problem from the same people. Next person. I've done hard drugs, and I've also sold hard drugs in large amounts when I was dumb and reckless while living in Richmond for multiple years, and I've done my time for it in jail. These SROs are not meant to help people to get off drugs. In fact, you're much more likely to keep using or start using if you were to live there. A lot of people don't realize it's not just the drug that's addictive, it's also the lifestyle that goes along with it. I was addicted to fentanyl and know many others living in Richmond who still are. But you never guess who these people are. The people you see in this video are never going to quit. No matter how much support you give them, they'll never be contributing members of society. I know all the bleeding hearts want to believe that to be false, but I know these people, and no matter what they say, they will not change. Most of them have been living that way for far too long and are too comfortable living that way to desire any change. Next person. It's a hard subject, I get it. It's a topic that's controversial. I've said it many times. A properly managed TMH, I'm sure everyone can get behind. However, with the evidence we have, it suggests otherwise. I'm sorry some people feel attacked, but you gotta face the music. You have your rights, I have mine. These are the legitimate concerns we have. My family is my priority. And one more. No one uses the dog park beside the SRO because they can be very aggressive and there's usually a few of them around. This experiment has failed and it's time to go back to the drawing board. The mayor and MLA should have this as a top priority. Let me know when they actually do their job. Thank you.
All right, the next speaker is Sheldon Starrett, and then Max Sui. Is Max here tonight? Max here tonight?
Okay, Sheldon Starrett. I'm a resident of Alderbridge and Westminster. I was not involved with any of the campaigns against the site originally. I held an open mind that transitional housing was absolutely necessary to help those who are homeless to transition back to a more stable situation. I still believe that. Residents in the neighborhood have not been complaining in opposition to needed social housing, but to how Rain City has managed and conducted itself in this temporary capacity. And I think last week, Councillor Liu made a very revealing statement when she did express frustration that very few in terms of metrics and evaluation of the efficacy of Rain City's program has been presented to council. And I think that's important. To my understanding, transitions have been few, nowhere near over 50%, perhaps not even over 25% in terms of success. I think residents in the neighborhood would feel greater peace of mind if the site was used to house homeless persons that are not battling drug addictions. It is clear that Rain City has been unable to curb drug use in the neighborhood by their residents, guests of their residents, or possibly even the drug dealers that follow customers who may be residents or guests of their residents to the site. Those with drug addictions need help, but it would seem they are not getting adequate help with Rain City and may require greater healthcare resources in a more secure medical setting. I strongly believe the provincial government needs to do more to reopen Riverview and invest more money into mental health and drug addiction treatments and resources. Getting back to the basics, yes, the city should support resources for those experiencing homelessness. As a resident of the neighborhood, I am asking City Council to apply more oversight to the matter of drug addiction and associated crime occurring in this location. We should demand better of service providers in this city, and if Rain City is not up to the task, we should find another service provider to operate the extension of this modular housing. I have concerns that there has also not been significant auditing or reviews of Rain City by independent third-party auditors to evaluate their programs. And I do find it remarkable that this has not been required more extensively by council. Housing is important, and those experiencing homelessness require it. But City Council should still have tougher oversight and regulation. Residents and businesses are tired of finding used needles, seeing people doing drugs in front of families, and children walking by and seeing this. Just because there is a homelessness crisis does not mean there is an excuse to break the laws or allow disorder in the neighborhood. It does not mean that councillors can say it's okay for people to break into parking garages because they need a place to live, or to tell residents they need to keep paying more money to repair property damage and insurance costs because of the added crime that drug dependency has contributed in the neighborhood. Many of the condo buildings and hotels did not have secure gates prior to 2019, but since the modular home was built, they have had to be installed, and even these measures are not 100% deterrent. I think Councillor McNulty last week said these people have not had the chance to be good neighbors, which is a fair statement. If Rain City was actually transitioning people through their program, but many of the residents are not transitioning, and they've had more than 4 years to learn to be good neighbors. I would like City Council to think hard whether Rain City is a provider they will continue to work with in the future, as there are many other service providers with better track records than this one. And I've looked at 3030 Gordon Avenue in Coquitlam to find a myriad of complaints about Rain City's housing there. The residents, businesses, and neighbors do not deserve to suffer the consequences of a council decision on this. The homeless folks seeking transitional support that are not drug addicts do not deserve to be lumped in with those who are battling drug addictions. And those who are addicted to powerful drugs need greater help that Rain City Housing cannot provide. All around, this is a rather untenable and unfair situation that is not helping. Those with addiction need rehabilitation, just like in Portugal with the Portuguese model. And the facility in Alderbridge seems poorly equipped to help with that. To my knowledge, there has been a few overdose deaths on site already, even with a safe consumption site. Since I have an anticipation that most of you will be voting on this, I just ask that the city do more to mitigate the harmful effects and impacts of Rain City's modular housing that it has had on the neighborhood. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Next speaker is Max Sui. Is he here? Okay, then we have Yan Lee. Is Yan? And then Vincent Nguyen.
Honorable members of City Council and respected officers, I appreciate the opportunity to share my personal experience with you here. My name is Yan Li. I have resided in Lotus along Alderbridge Way for the past 2 years. Initially, I was so pleased with my condo purchase due to its excellent location, close to SkyTrain, to hospital, to park, as well as the tranquility it offered. However, I soon realized that living in a neighborhood could be a matter of concern, particularly for women. The prevalence of violent incidents and frequent police stops make it feel unsafe for me to venture out at night. Recently, our garage gate was broken for 2 days, leading to unauthorized individuals entering and attempting theft, some of whom are confirmed associated with the temporary modular home. Another neighbor, who also has 2 young children, expressed to me her concerns about feeling unsafe while walking in the park during the evening. She has observed an increasing prevalence of drug use and incidents of individuals being found unconscious around our building. Additionally, she frequently hears loud screams and yelling from the street, even from her residence on the 17th floor. While we understand the city's commitment to assisting the homeless, it is crucial to extend this responsibility to ensure the safety of women, children, and seniors who may be vulnerable when facing crimes. Richmond has always been known as a peaceful and secure city within the Greater Vancouver area, and recent changes are dismaying. Let's work together to restore the safety and harmony that Richmond has always exemplified. In case the extension of the lease is inevitable, we may have to invest in additional security measures. We are concerned about the financial burden this might impose and seeking clarity on compensation. Presently, life is challenging due to the rising CPI, escalating mortgage and strata fees, and all other associated costs. More expenditures on securities will surely pose a risk of financial hardship for many of us, including myself. I believe this is not a scenario the City Council members would desire to witness. Hope you can reconsider the lease extension for the modular home. That's all I want to say today. Thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you very much. Is Vincent Nguyen here? All right, is there anybody else in the audience who wishes to discuss, to delegate on any item on the agenda? Anyone else?
Move the Horizon report.
All right. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Brings us to the consent agenda. One item has been taken off there. That's the number 1 road item. We have a receipt of committee minutes, the Richmond Arts Facility Needs Assessment, the Stevenson Community Center and Library Signature Outdoor Artwork Concept Proposal, Stevenson Heritage Interpretive Framework, the 2024 District Energy Utility Rates and Utility Budgets and Rates. We have the land use application for first reading, which goes to public hearing December 18th. That's 11831 and 33 Seabrook Crescent, rezoning from single detached RS1E zone to the single detached RS2B zone. May I have a motion to adopt those items by general consent? Okay, so we'll go to speakers. Councillor McNulty.
Yeah, just 3 items I'd like to comment on, Your Worship. First of all, is the Richmond Arts Facilities Needs Assessment. Was very happy to make the motion to committee to encourage that we spend $75,000 now to do this particular study for facilities. As we know, in all aspects of Richmond, the growing population and the growing city, we need facilities. And the sooner we do this as a one-time funding and get it done, the better off. Not only that, but as development continues in Richmond, we may be able to take advantage of some of the opportunities, like Lansdowne, like Atmosphere, whatever. Then we may be able to get some facilities that will allow our arts people in all aspects, from performing arts to visual arts, to have a home and an opportunity to carry out their endeavors. As well, I'm very pleased to see Stevenson Community Center and Library Signage Outdoors. Good job there, and pleased to see with the artists and the style is coming on. And I was very impressed to see that 33 artists applied to do this. This is fantastic. And I've always said Richmond has some of the world-class artists in our backyard, and I think we need to appreciate them all. And then the last thing I did want to mention, Your Worship, and to you and Councillor Au, is on the utilities budget that we're going through. We need to be aware that we do rate stabilization to mitigate many of the increases, and we take it from there. But next year for 2024, I believe it's a 12.36% increase from Metro Vancouver. And it's not Richmond Council that's hitting you for the utilities taxes. It's the Metro Vancouver paying for many of the facilities, everything from the North Shore treatment plant to Iona upgrade to Gilbert upgrade to many of the other things that are growing population in the Lower Mainland. And it's not just us that is getting that raise. It's other municipalities are as well. It's forecast for 12, then it goes 5, and then back up to 12 again. So I just think we need to let people be aware of it. Yes, in some cases it's only $2 or $3, but you might see your utility bill just up a little bit. But I guess we can look at the bright side of things, that we've got the best water in the world here in Richmond. We have the amenities that others don't have, and as long as we have it, but somebody's got to pay for it, and there's only one taxpayer, and that's us individually and collectively. So I just put that out there. I did ask Your Worship at committee whether the Metro Vancouver portion or a note can be made on the utilities and tax notices that go out to show people where their taxes are being taken from and what they're paying for. And I wonder if staff could take that under advisement and come back via memo and or let us know in some way, shape, or form how we can let the public know when they get their tax drop. And that's all I have, Your Worship, and I was supporting everything else on the agenda. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll go to Councillor Hobbs.
Thanks, and through the chair, I'll be supporting everything on the consent agenda. Just a couple of quick comments and a couple of questions as well. First, just a comment on the Richmond Arts Facility Needs Assessment. This is really timely. We've heard from a number of groups in the community that there is a great need. It's a very good report. I thank staff for that. Mentions in the report that it's been about 30 years since we've had a good look at that or any significant change in that. And in that time, it also cites a 69% population growth in Richmond. So it's timely, and we hear that from the community a lot. The next thing I want to touch on is number 17, the Steveson Heritage Framework. This was a very thorough and good report. I remember participating in this process a few years back as a member of the Britannia Board, and it has 4 themes and 15 sub-stories. If you're interested in heritage or a little bit of history in Richmond, I'd really strongly recommend reading it because it's going to be very good and very thorough. I just want to mention that staff, community organizations and societies and volunteers all participated in this quite a bit. And I just really like the themes and the sub-stories as well. With the district energy rates, that's number 18, and the Lulu Island Energy Company, this is a very good thing. Again, something somebody should spend a little time looking at it if you're interested in climate change and the environment and that kind of thing, because it's a very major part of how Richmond's going to reduce its greenhouse gases. And there's a couple goals that Richmond has set out by 2050. And they're quite ambitious, but this is one of the ways we're going to be doing it. It's a significant part of our plan. I just have one question for staff on this one, if I could get somebody. In reading the report, one of the things it mentions is the gas rate, Fortis gas, and how that's going to remain relatively stable. And when I look at all the various things that go into it, infrastructure and that kind of thing, and we with Lulu Island Energy have to have competitive rates. That's part of the mandate, and that's a good thing. But are the rates that are cited in the report to do with Fortis, are they really apples to apples? Is everything included in that, all the infrastructure, all the capital projects? Because that seems like a rather low increase considering we've, I think, had inflation pegged at about almost 7%, I think. So is that is that real, the Fortis number?
Through your worship to Councillor Hobbs. Every utility, including BC Hydro, Fortis, as well as LIC, they're looking long-term projection. All utilities, including Fortis BC, BC Hydro, or as LIC in their rates, look at the long-term projection of the cost and infrastructure expansions. With Fortis BC, only what I can say is that as they planned their rates and customer base, with current initiatives of moving off the fossil fuels, it is likely that their cost may be going much higher as the demand reduces because they will have lots of infrastructure that will be stranded.
Sure, well, that makes sense. Okay, I'm just curious about their number. It seems low to me, and I wonder what's behind such a low number considering the economic times we're in, and we are trying to move away from fossil fuels. So
those are the projections that currently we can look at that based on public reports and projections. Yeah.
all right, well, thank you. I just have a couple comments about the water.
Yeah, please don't go far.
Okay. Just the water utility, and similar vein to what Councillor McNulty just mentioned. I think it is important for people to have a look at that. I mean, there's 4 things in that. There's water, there's sewer, there's flood protection, and there's solid waste. I'm just going to comment on water and sewer because the cost of that for us is roughly 70% Metro Vancouver, 30% for us. And sewer, that's sewer, water, it's 43.57. So a lot of the cost comes from Metro Vancouver, and we buy our water from them, and it is really good water, as you've heard. But the rate of increase that's being recommended is quite high, if you think in terms of your own household, somewhere in the neighborhood of 7.6% or 10.3%. So that's a concern, and we are going to have to deal with that. If you look at the costs for Richmond, in terms of our budget and how it's gone, we've held our increases to a much lower rate in the neighborhood of the high 2s or 3%. So one question I have for staff in regards to table 1, or actually not table 1, but just in terms of the water rate. So Richmond has metered all its single-family residences, and we're working on multi-family residences now. We're working our way through that. And I think I know the answer to this, but I'd like it to be said publicly. Do we get any discount or any benefit other than using less water, which we do use less water? Do we get any benefit or discount from Metro Vancouver for being responsible and having so many of all our houses metered and working on the rest? Any benefit to that for us?
Through your worship to Councillor Hobbs, no other than we just get a lower cost to purchase water.
Sure, we pay the same price, we just use less, so we pay less, yeah. It would be nice if we got a benefit from being responsible and leading the way on that. And the other question is, with Metro Vancouver having so many capital expenditures coming up and requiring a lot of cash, why don't they require all municipalities to follow our example and meter all houses and all multifamily residences?
Through your worship to Councillor Hobbs, yes, Metro does encourage metering. Unfortunately, again, many of the other municipalities have not followed Richmond's lead in being as aggressive as we have been with the metering.
The legislation doesn't permit Metro Vancouver to mandate water metering. And when you start talking about it, you want to hear the excuses you get.
Yeah, well, that might be true. It would be nice to see them take a leadership role and actually strongly encourage it.
Well, they do strongly encourage it, they just can't mandate it.
Right, okay. With the, I just want to point out again that our increase with regards to sewers, the Richmond increase has been 3.3%. I think on average it's been pretty low. And Metro Vancouver's increase since 2006 has gone up 158%. That's what you have in the report. So, oh, you're going to comment, go ahead.
No comment.
So as Councilor McNulty pointed out, I think we are in for some large projected increases for Metro Vancouver in that regard.
Yes, through your worship to Councillor Hobbs, yes, in the upcoming years, Metro Vancouver races on sanitary will be fairly significant.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you. Those are my comments.
Councilor Wolf.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will be supporting everything that is on the consent agenda. I'll just speak briefly to 4 of the items. No questions at this time. First one is item number 15, the Arts Facility Needs Assessment. And I thank Committee Parks and Rec, where we kind of put the pedal down a little bit on this one so that we can actually get the report and action by the end of next year on potential expansions or capital works regarding our facilities. But in the meantime, thanks to St. Albans Church and other spaces that have been able to provide for the local concert band and youth orchestra that have been, we're in dire need of space. Item number 16, congratulations to the Musqueam artist Susan Point, as was mentioned, being awarded the Outside Art Concept for Stevenson Community Center and Library, the Salish paddles, which signify the salmon swimming upriver. Item number 19, the utility budgets and rates that were just discussed, and were discussed at length in finance. I did have a request to staff to provide some detail on the 4 flood protection staff. And that there was one more correspondence that I'm not sure if everyone read, or if you were copied, I think, on it. So I did ask about those 4 staff, but I was also trying to find out where do they fit in with the larger picture of flood protection staff that Richmond has. And pleased to hear that we do have 59 permanent full-time staff in addition to these 4. Where they fall under is 9 under engineering, 1 under environmental sustainability, 1 under real estate, 48 under public works, and we'll be adding 1 more engineering, 2 more public works, and 1 staff solicitor with this option that we selected for this item. And finally, item number 21, the development on Seabrook Crescent, just to highlight, they're removing 2 trees. They are doing the replacement 4 in place of those 2, but then they're actually adding an extra 2 which I commend the developer on that one. Thank you.
Councillor Glanders.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will also be supporting the consent agenda this evening, and I just want to also comment on the Richmond Arts Facility Needs Assessment, and I agree with everything everybody has said about that tonight, and I want to thank the people that came forward from the public and the arts community last year to highlight the need for a purpose-built performance space, especially for music. And, you know, just recently, just in the last 2 weeks, there were two city events. One was the Over 90s Tea, where there was this fabulous big brass band playing. It wasn't a Richmond band, but, you know, just that music adds so much, you know, to an event. And at our Remembrance Day event, we had this beautiful music being played and the choir singing. And it just had me thinking, you know, how much we count on there being musicians in the community and how much we rely on the arts community to be there for us, for our events and for everything else, and to add to the culture of our city, but we don't always support it financially as much as we do other things like sports, for example. And we're known for building wonderful sports facilities in Richmond, and we did a sports facility needs assessment recently, and now we're going to be moving forward with an arts facilities needs assessment, which is equally as important. And I'm just really happy that that's happening. And that's all for me. Thank you.
All right, Councillor Au.
Yes, Worship, I'm going to support everything on the consent agenda, but I want to make comments on 3 items. The first one is on the art facility needs assessment. I think it's very clearly pointed out in the report that we have the need for more and better facilities for arts and culture, especially, you know, if you look at the numbers. You know, Gay Theatre was 40 years old. Richmond Cultural Center was 30 years old. So I think those buildings or facilities might not meet the needs of the current demands. Now, I want to ask staff a question, because on CNCL 54, staff said that there's no industry standard benchmarking specific to the provision of arts and culture spaces and programs. And further down the paragraph, staff said that the assessment would be addressing and to have a better understanding of the needs and aspirations unique to Richmond. So, I mean, if we don't have a benchmarking as a reference, so how can we discuss the uniqueness of the Richmond situation?
Your Worship, to Councillor Au, that's an excellent question, and of course that is exactly why we're going to do some stakeholder engagement to find out these unique needs. There are things we're aware of through our grants programs. We're familiar with a number of arts organizations, of course, and we're going to be working very closely with the Richmond Arts Coalition to learn more. Absolutely, we have a unique city, a very multicultural, diverse city. Our arts programs, our arts experiences reflect the diversity of our community, and we expect that this art strategy will follow suit.
Okay, good. And a follow-up question. Now, I understand that we're talking about Richmond, but I remember that on many occasions when we talk about the needs in Richmond, we always make reference to the region, saying that, okay, we may not need this because there's already another facility in the other city within the region that can, entertain our needs. So again, how do you balance this Richmond versus regional assessments?
Through your Worship, to Councillor Au, that will be part of the scope of work of the consultant to look at the whole region. Certain types of facilities, like for example, a large concert hall, would be something that perhaps people go from one community to another in order to be in those larger spaces. And so every type of space will be looking at the region as a context as well as Richmond specifically.
Good. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the report, right? And then to see how we can move forward with better facilities to meet the community needs. My second topic will be the Stevenson Community Center and Library Signature Outdoor Artwork Concept Proposal. I'm very happy with the proposal, and I think the theme being chosen is excellent. And since we had the meeting a few weeks ago, and I've been speaking to people in the neighborhood and in the city, and I think I would say unanimously endorse the concept, saying that we've chosen the most fitting theme. And moving forward, item 17, Stevenson Heritage Interpretive Framework. Again, I have to applaud staff for coming up with a very thorough report and also recommendations. And on CNCL 89, I really like the themes being chosen. Cultural diversity. I think many people do not know that Richmond has been a diverse community almost right from the beginning. So we have different cultural groups living in Richmond harmoniously for many years. So I think to have this interpretive framework related to the cultural diversity is very appropriate. And the connection to the Fraser River, again, Fraser River is really important to us, not only environmentally, but also economically. So I think to draw our attention back to the connection with the Fraser River is also very fitting. But I like the third one the most, the past in our present. Again, many new immigrants do not understand or do not know the history of Richmond. And many of them might even feel that, Richmond has no history, or Richmond has developed only after they have come. So I think to relate the past to the present and probably into the future is very important. And that would be a very important link to help people to understand our history, to find a root in our community, and also be engaged to make the future for the whole of Richmond. So I think the past in our present is a very important theme, and it's very helpful for us to try to get to our goal, which is to build a harmonious community for all. So I congratulate staff for having chosen these themes, and also looking forward to the implementation, the actual work to be done. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Liu.
Thank you, Worship. I too will be supporting everything on tonight's consent agenda. Not to beat a dead horse, but talking about our utility rates. I know there is a little bit of sticker shock sometimes when you look at the percentage increases, and prices will go up. We have some large projects coming up, as Councillor McNulty mentioned. There's one going in the North Shore. There's the Iona wastewater treatment plant that's going to be many billions of dollars. And luckily for Richmond, we've got our sewer system plant, and it's working well. And it almost begs the question if we should be trying to pull out of Metro for our sewer, because we do have separated sewers. So in Richmond, because we always had the ditches that some of us probably played in as kids, when those got covered over, those were separated, so they don't go into the sewer system. And so what happens in Vancouver is all the water, if it falls out of the sky, if it goes through your toilet, it all goes in the same place. So on a heavy rain day, it all ends up at Iona, and then it ends up overflowing on those heavy rain days. And because they're not separating their sewers, that's part of the reason Iona has to get replaced for a lot of money, in addition to some federal rules on how we have to process our wastewater in order to protect the Salish Sea and our environment. But the other good thing about Richmond, and also West Van, is we have meters here in Richmond. And so over the years, we've actually managed to reduce our consumption of water despite growing our population. So that being said, before we all pat ourselves on the back too much, we still use more than double per capita the amount of water they use in Europe. So we're using twice as much water as we need to, probably. And a lot of us have already taken advantage of the upgrading your toilets. There were rebates from the city, upgrading your appliances, using them efficiently. We've got the rain barrels here in Richmond. You can hook those up to your drain spout, and then you can use water that came free from the sky. The other thing too is we actually perhaps undervalue our water. So if you look at our rate, we're charging $1.73 per cubic meter. A cubic meter is 1,000 liters of water. You can't get anything delivered to your house for $1.73. That's a cubic meter of that. You can't get a cubic meter of air delivered to your house. So we have to realize that sometimes by keeping these numbers low, we're not maybe valuing our water as closely as we should and paying attention to it. And so maybe we do actually need to be thinking about placing more cost on it, almost like a carbon tax, but not. So prepaying, paying for what we're using and paying for it more in our property taxes so that we pay attention to it. Because recently, Metro Vancouver and Richmond, we've adjusted our development cost charges to push some of that capital cost and push it to new builds. So instead of us taking responsibility for all the water that gets used, we're trying to say, well, that new building relates to the new house that got built around the corner. Well, you can put it on everybody's property tax a little bit, or you can just put it on the new builds. Unfortunately, what it does for the new builds is it raises across the region everybody's cost of their home, the value of their home, or the cost of getting into it. So it's tricky determining how you're going to put that hit on affordability. So either everybody gets a little bit of a hit, or just the new people into the market get the hit. Unfortunately, we've decided to go with DCCs and push it to the new people, but we can still do our part to keep the water use down, and the water that goes into your house is also the water that goes out of your house. So the less we bring in, the less we have to push out. So the more efficient we can be with both sides of it. The other thing that is very important on our utility is flood protection. And so I believe in Richmond, we've done a really good job of flood protection. I don't know if any of you had any flooding at your home in the last couple of years, but I know Abbotsford had terrible flooding, and they said, well, what can we do? Meanwhile, Richmond's been charging a little bit every year to you, building up our dikes, working on our pumps, making sure that everybody's safe, making sure your biggest investment, your home and your family, is safe. And so while the numbers are going up, the value of what you're protecting has also gone up. And I hope everybody sees the value in that. And sorry, your taxes are going up, but at least we know why they are, and we can probably live with it.
Okay, next speaker is Councillor Day.
Thank you very much, Mayor Brody. Some great items on this agenda, I have to say. The Richmond Arts Facilities Needs Assessment, Richmond Council is contributing $75,000 to build a plan and do an assessment to find out what we really need. And it's important because in the last 30 years, our population has increased 69%. And I'm a big fan of multi-use buildings whenever possible. So I'd like to see whatever we build be used by multiple groups, multiple times on multiple days. An example of this is Richmond Cambie High School and Richmond Community Center. Cambie Community Center are sharing the same space. Same as the fire hall at number 4 in Cambie. You've got a fire hall and an ambulance station. So I'm hoping that when staff come back with the assessment, we've got some really creative ideas, made in Richmond ideas that can really work for us. Number 16 is a Stevenson Community Center artwork. You probably can't see this, but it's a really cool paddle pattern, and it's going to have fish on it. And the artist, as has been mentioned, is Susan Point, who's a very famous Musqueam artist. And I love the theme. It says it represents the 4-year cycle of salmon, as well as the 4 winds, the 4 directions, the 4 seasons, the 4 moons, the 4 elements, earth, water, air, fire, and so on. So it's really a piece that's going to speak highly of the history of Richmond, and I think it's going to be fun to see it at the Stevenson Community Center. The Stevenson Heritage Interpretive Framework, okay, what that is how are we going to save our heritage buildings in Richmond? And I was really pleased to see that the Britannia Shipyards, London Heritage Farms, Stevenson Historic Society, Gulf of Georgia Cannery, Scotch Pond Cooperative, and Tourism Richmond worked together to come up with some brilliant ideas for the future of our heritage buildings. And then, as has been mentioned, the utility rates, there's a chart on page 132 if anybody wants to see it. And it's quite interesting because, like for instance, in Richmond, our water or our sewer proportion of our bill is $507. It's a lot of toilet flushing for $507, whereas in Burnaby, it's $936. So all those things that we're doing, such as new toilets and that we're doing to make a difference in Richmond are actually saving us a great deal of money. So that's really good. And the last one is just there's a duplex on Seabrook, which is going to be torn down, but then there'll be 2 new houses built, each one with a suite. So while we're losing some housing, we're also gaining some housing. And a lot of these older duplexes are well past the age that they can be renovated. So I'll be supporting that as well. So that's it for me.
Councillor Heed.
Quickly, because everyone else spoke, I thought I'd say a few words, but I just wanted to touch on a couple things, and that's utility rates that we're facing right now. There's been some, debate here on whether we point the finger at Metro, we point the finger at us, because it's our taxpayers that are going to have to borne this particular rate increase. So it's important to realize that if we didn't have Metro Vancouver, we'd be wearing this all by ourselves. So there is a positive aspect of us being with Metro Vancouver on so many of the economies of scales that are garnished because of all the local governments that are on it. So I don't want to, take it all and blame it all on Metro Vancouver when in fact we need these particular services. I think we're gaining some efficiencies as a result of being with Metro Vancouver on that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So on the consent agenda,
With recommendation.
no, we've already got, it's on the floor. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. So there's 2 items off the consent agenda. First is item 20. I'll go to Councillor McNulty as Chair of Planning Committee.
Thank you, Worship. The item to deal with is an application by Terra at 8120 Number 1 Road, limited partnership for rezoning at 8120 and 8140 Number 1 Road from a single detached RS1E zone to a low townhouse density RTL4 zone. And I would introduce it and give it first reading.
Second.
Yeah, I just want to mention, Your Worship, it's a small development, but very important, 9 townhouse units on Number 1 Road. 1 3-story building and 1 2-story building. It's a duplex building, which will fit in quite nicely with the internal drive running north-south between the buildings. The development meets all the arterial road policy. And as well, it provides for common outdoor amenity spaces on site for the 9 homes. And there is a major contribution coming to the Leisure Facilities Reserve Fund. And it will be stratified, by the way, Your Worship. So I think it'll fit out quite nicely. Adequate parking, 2 visitors parking. So it's one of those developments that is important. Tremendous tree protection. Actually, it's fairly well done on this one. 6 trees, 2 hedges, and 1 other tree. But we're also getting a survival security for it, and for each of the trees. So the issue with this particular development, if there is one, is they've asked for a variance of 10 meters on the width size and allow parking for 6 small vehicles and parking spaces. But a good proposal coming forward with a step code, accessibility in a number of the units with features like stairwell, handrails, lever-type plumbing fixtures and door handles, and those kinds of things that actually should be referred to the Accessibility Committee as well to upgrade on our behalf. So with that, Your Worship, I'll just answer any questions or see if others have any comments on it.
Councillor Wolf.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just briefly on this, I did attend Planning Committee and did ask a couple questions, and I'll just won't have any more questions, but I'll just highlight what I've learned and why I'm opposed to this one. So as I previously mentioned, there was a developer coming forward with the plan to build extra trees. This one does not do that. Yes, there's 6 trees being saved, but there's 13 being lost, plus a fig tree that's not counting, and a hedge. And as a result, our bylaw says you have to replace it with 26 trees. They're fitting 17 only, so that means there's 9 trees that are supposed to be planted here. That would be part of our urban forest going forward, but they're not. They've been given cash in lieu, and wherever that ends up going, where those trees end up growing, is not where they need to go. We did hear about this being for 9 townhouses. Well, and variances requested. It could be more of a densely packed development. It could potentially, after those CP amendments coming in the next months, I hope, this could have actually gone for an extra story. And then again, pack them in, and then you can actually fit the trees on site where you're supposed to put them if you really need to take that many down. I also was quite taken by hearing about 2 trees that were in the front, and they were taking innovative design to retain them. And then the arborist told us, oh, they're in a rapid state of decline now, and they're no longer viable. Well, even if they're no longer viable, the space where they were able to grow to such great heights and health should be maintained. And that's why they still, because of the frontage, should be able to have that area protected. Because it's not going to get protected because of what's going to happen in a few minutes here. It's just going to get packed full with sand and densified. And there's any of these stick trees that they put in will not even come close to getting the height and success that those other trees did. So with that, I'm opposed to it. Thanks.
All right, I'll call the question then on item 20. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried with Councillor Wolf opposed. And Councillor Calanders. Then we have number 22, the potential lease extension amendment agreement for the Alderbridge site. General Purposes Committee recommends that the current ground lease with the Provincial Rental Health Housing Corporation for the Alderbridge supportive housing located on city property at 6999 Alderbridge Way be extended for a period of approximately 3.5 years from the expiry of the current ground lease until December 31st, 2027, as per the terms outlined in the staff report titled, and then it just refers to the staff report. Secondly, that staff be authorized to take all necessary steps to negotiate an extension to the lease extension amendment agreement for the Alderbridge supportive housing, and that the CAO and the General Manager of Finance and Corporate Services be authorized to execute such amending agreement and all related documentation, and I would so move.
Second.
All right, so this is the application to extend the lease for the Alderbridge site, which we've heard so much about. I think people are familiar with the details of it. So we'll see what comments we get. Councillor Liu.
Thank you, Worship. And I'd like to make a referral after this about a letter that I'd like to write to the province. I think this has been extremely frustrating and disappointing to a lot of people. I think there was a lot of hope that there'd be more success and that it would fit into the neighborhood a lot more seamlessly than it has. We've heard a lot of frustration from people in the neighborhood. We've heard a lot of even from the service providers themselves being frustrated about the number of rooms that are available, the availability of other services to help people who are suffering from addiction and homelessness. The growth in homelessness, the growth in the number of people who are addicted to drugs, and the loss of the people who are addicted to drugs here in Richmond. And so, unfortunately, we don't have anywhere to send these people for the next couple of years until we get the new facility built. This hasn't been a good place to have what's called a low barrier facility. And we will absolutely be paying attention to that the next project we try and build. And I know we're also seeing from the government that they're knowing that crime has gone up. The provincial government has just talked about securing small business rebate. And so my referral will be to write a letter to the province asking if that can be extended to stratas, because the province is talking about helping to defray the cost of added security in response to theft and vandalism, which has increased to small businesses and other groups. It should also be supporting the stratas that are in these neighborhoods that are being affected by crime, theft and vandalism. And I know tomorrow at Community Safety we'll be discussing what else we can be doing with the city of Richmond to try and make it more secure, safer, and better for the community at community safety tomorrow. I will be supporting this project today, and we'll be working with the police and everyone else to see what else we can be doing.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Wolf, did you have your hand up and I took it down? Okay, I'll go to you next. Then we've got Counselor McNulty and Counselor Heath. Go ahead.
All right, thank you very much, recognizing that. Yes, I will just have some brief comments here in regards to the countless, and I do mean that, I've received incredible amounts of letters from, not all opposed, but many of the residents in the area in regards to this project ever since we approved the temporary use of the space. It is probably the largest pile in my stacks that I have squirreled away. But I have pointed out a few that I'll make mention of today in the decision that I've made. So I did watch the whole video that was shared in brief with us. Not easy to watch that. Also not clear as to where those people are in the video and where they've come from. We did get some correspondence from people who know some of those individuals and know that they've never resided at the temporary modular housing site that is in question. That doesn't mean that they're all that way. There very likely is some that have been residents there. I certainly would not want to see that when I walk out my door or have my children experience that, but they have, and it doesn't really matter where you live in the city center probably a bit more, but out in Hamilton where I live, or East Richmond where a lot of my friends where I grew up, they have it there as well, and they have their kids having to walk and experience this. But the fact that we do live in a city and we don't want to be blinded to it. You don't want your kid to grow up thinking that this doesn't exist in a place where it does and likely will. Cities concentrate certain things, they're not all good things. And unfortunately, this is the stage that we're at in development in Richmond. It does take time to get the continuity of care set up. This is identified by all the participants, the levels of government, the community partners, and on council, I feel it's my role to see that through. I do note that the word here, the T, stands for temporary, and we're not deciding today to make this a permanent site for this. It is to remain temporary, and we're doing what we can to get an expedited development done that can be permanent. It takes time to acquire land, it takes time to get designs and plans. Things are going the way they need to go. And I am pleased that some of the letters we have received are from people who have spent time living there as residents, and how much they thank Rain City for this opportunity to get cleaned up and get on the next stage of their life. That not everyone has been as fortunate as that letter writer or testimonial that we received, but I am also very thankful that we have groups like Tapestry Richmond in the neighborhood, because they are doing an exemplary job of being a good neighbor for people who are in such need. And finally, I'll just say that I have requested to Rain City that when they do organize those neighborhood team meetings to hear and work through ongoing problems, I want to be there, or at least want to know that these next meetings are happening if I can't attend in person at the time. So I do take that comment that one of the delegates said, that the city needs to increase oversight, and I'll do what I can. So thank you.
Councilor McNulty.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. I will be supporting it, but I'm going to make a few comments. No one should have to tolerate what's taking place there. And unfortunately, we're caught between a rock and a hard place. We tried an experiment, and these folks have nowhere to go. And we've helped us with the homeless problem, because otherwise they'd probably be homeless and on the street and in various places anyhow. And I have to think we've got to work together on these issues. And I want to add something tonight, Your Worship, because I says it be authorized to execute, etc. And I'd like to add a 3 and a 4 tonight. I really believe the operator has to take some responsibility in terms of their premises and their surrounding grounds. I've heard from another site at 2 and Blundell, where the operator won't do anything when they see something happening outside and says, it's not my responsibility. Tell the residents to call the police, whatever. I think that's wrong. And I would like that Rain City review its existing drug usage policy on the premises and in the grounds. I'd like to know if they go out and patrol. Neighbors tell me they pick up needles. Well, maybe Rain City should be picking up those needles and patrolling it. They're running the place. You know, the people who live around are not running the place. So I'd like to see that in there, Your Worship. The other is on what the referral to staff for action to identify the issues surrounding that precinct, and I'll say the precinct because it's a bigger area than just the building, okay? And how we can identify the issues, see what services and programs we have to address the issues and how they can be addressed, and what funding might be required for action. I really think that we've got to do something for it, whether, I'm not sure exactly what it is, staff or the professionals, but I think we've got to deal with it and help the folks out head on. We're the ones making this recommendation, so let's put some resources there to see what it is. I don't know if that's supervision, picking up, drug use, whatever. I think we need to identify what it is. What is the issue? Is it, as Councillor Wolf saying, somebody's moving in or somebody's there, whatever. Maybe they shouldn't be allowed visitors. I don't know that. But what are the issues and why are we getting that? And I think we need to identify them. By just taking this, it just means we just go on to the next and nothing is being done. Maybe if we've got vandalism, et cetera, the RCMP do something in terms of helping them have greater security, this or do we patrol it? If we ask the RCMP to patrol it every once in a while or whatever, I don't know. So I think, Your Worship, I was going to move this the last time, but we were pushed for the time. But I really would like to see that in the book, and I would have a motion tonight to have staff start working on it immediately to address it. I watched the video. It was horrendous. Thank you for doing it. Thank you for coming out. But there is no reason, there are some things that we can address. We're not going to be able to solve the whole thing all at once, but I think we've worked together. We can minimize some of the situations that are there and address them. Many of those people need help. They need help in a different way. And by just giving them a room and letting them, whatever they do in the room, I don't know what the policy is in the room, whatever, doesn't solve the issue. And,
all right, we're going to come back to you.
Will you come back to me later on that?
After we come back to Councillor Liu.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Heed.
Yes, I'll just make a comment, first of all, based on what Councillor McNulty said. We're going to discuss this at length in the Public Safety Committee, and I know there's going to be some action there, so I'm not sure if we want to do something separate here or we just want the Public Safety Committee to do it. But Mayor, I got to tell you, and I hope I get those positive comments from Councillor McNulty, my cohort here, when we start looking at solutions outside of the box to get rid of that public drug use that's going on, such as some type of consumption site or something of that nature, so we can get them out of harm's way. But I can tell you right now, and I did not watch the video because I've seen that firsthand in my 32 years in law enforcement. And I know the tragedies that these people are going through. They don't want to be in that particular situation, but we as a society have to be able to deal with that. I think the focus of our council and city government at this time is to see how we can mitigate what the neighborhood is going to go through in the next 3.5 years until we have the permanent housing built. And I think that's the focus. That's where we have to start to concentrate on those things, and we have to be very creative. I can tell you right now, defaulting it to the RCMP to deal with your problems, that's not going to happen. We need to be creative, and we looked at creativity elsewhere when we started to look at private security patrolling public spaces as a deterrent to them committing some of the activity out there. That's the creativity, that's the outside of the traditional paradigm responses we have to think of. And I think this is certainly going to be borne on the Community Safety Committee to think of that and see how we can come up with those things, because defaulting to the RCMP, I'm sorry, but we're going to be dealing with what you're dealing with right now continually. Being creative to deal with the solution so we can mitigate those concerns to the stratas around that area, to the businesses around that area are going to be so important. Thank you.
Councillor Hobbs.
Thanks, and through the chair. First, I do want to acknowledge the people that came up and spoke tonight. I think that your concerns were articulated really well, very reasonably, and you asked for a couple things that were quite specific, and I think a number of us have touched on those already. We all know that homelessness and addiction and mental health are crises that we're dealing with, and this temporary modular housing does provide some relief for a small number of people. It's not going to solve the whole problem. But, you know, for a city, as we try to move forward compassionately, and yet reasonably, and address the concerns that are legitimate that we've heard here tonight, you know, that's a tough balancing act. There aren't infinite resources, but it is important that we do move forward in that way, balancing things. And I think that, unfortunately, not tonight, but in previous conversations with some people, it's been framed as kind of a win-lose kind of question. And I don't think it has to be framed that way. I think there is potential for us to work more on a win-win, you know, win compromise, win mitigate, win solve some of the issues a little bit at a time, as other councillors have already mentioned. I mean, it's a complicated thing. It's not all crime, so it's not all the RCMP. It's not all bylaw offenses. It's a combination of disorder and disruption in the neighborhood that we're dealing with, and we're dealing with it for some very understandable reasons. People are going through crises. And when you talk about people that may be subjected to that in their life, like Councillor Heed has mentioned, I've seen this firsthand as well. I have not watched the video because I don't need to watch the video. I have seen it, as Councillor Heed has mentioned. And you have to remember that this can happen to anybody. We've seen it with people that grew up with ponies and on very, you know, very expensive homes and everything else. You're a couple bad decisions, a couple poor choices, a bad peer group, a bad decision, and a cascading effect that can happen, and it can happen to anybody. We've seen that. So moving forward compassionately and with reason and addressing some of the concerns we've had as we can, being creative is a good point. I think that is what we're going to have to do. Community safety, whether there's a referral tonight, I look forward to that, or whether we deal with it again at community safety tomorrow. I think there are things that as a city council and a city, we have to look at to address some of the legitimate concerns that we've heard here tonight and to improve the situation for everybody in the neighborhood while still moving forward compassionately for the people at that modular housing. So thank you, Your Worship.
Okay, Councillor Galanders.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, and I want to acknowledge the people that came and spoke. It is really important to hear what you're going through, and I just, yeah, you know what, I think that we are a community and we have different people facing different challenges, and I think I don't believe that unhousing people is going to make the neighborhood better. I think that would make things a lot worse. We heard somebody come up and speak that said that we should be housing those who are not addicted. We heard firsthand from the people that run from Rain City that many of the people that live in this building are not drug users and were just homeless. And many people that live in the building were drug users and no longer are, and have made connections in the community through the church and everything else. I think that we have seen an increase in public drug use Obviously, over the last year or two, year especially since Vancouver did their street sweep of Hastings Street and dispersed a lot of people. So a lot of people moved to different neighborhoods, including Richmond and probably everywhere else, Coquitlam, Burnaby, Maple Ridge, Surrey, you name it. And we have an increase of tents and an increase of people using outside. When the government brought in the decriminalization, we've had an increase of people using drugs and outdoors and in public, and the police had no ability to deal with that because of the vigilance of the decriminalization that was passed, and the provincial government has now passed a new law around that, so it's going to give some more tools, and we'll be talking about things in community safety, as was said. But the people living in the home are not the people trying to sleep in your garage. They're not the people screaming in the middle of the night. People are that are outdoors. We have mental illness issues that are doing those screamings, and you can find that in any neighborhood. I've witnessed that myself with my children as well. And I know that there's safety, and then there's perceived safety. I don't believe that there's been any violent incidences. I'm not trying to minimize what residents in the area feel like they're going through, but we've been getting photos from people that live in the area that take photos of people that are either guests or that they think are friends of, or people that live at the temporary modular housing and they don't like that they're sitting on a bench. A lot of the times they're not doing anything in the photo besides just looking like somebody who doesn't live in that building. And they get their photo taken and sent to us, like, look, this person is sitting on our bench, that doesn't belong to them. And I don't think that that's particularly extending much of an olive branch to your neighbors when you're taking photos of them not doing anything wrong. We received a complaint that somebody had a shopping cart and started looking at their clothes, or there's too many, clothes or whatever, and I just think, so somebody's got a shopping cart with some clothes and somebody else has some Louis Vuitton bags because they're rich. This is the society that we live in. We are not all rich, and some people have mental illness issues and some people use drugs. And, we're doing our best to manage that whole thing, but I think that safety and perceived safety are two different things. I think that Richmond is a very safe city, and I don't particularly like seeing people high on drugs either, but I do know that somebody who has been smoking fentanyl and who is slumped over and passed out is no harm to anybody except themselves and the people who love them, that hope that they're not doing that anymore. Those are the people that they're hurting themselves and they're hurting the people that love them, and they're of no danger to you when they're passed out. So, hopefully we'll come up with some more things to, like Councillor Heed said, to help move people out of the public eye and have people in areas where they can use and hopefully connect to services and get cleaned up. This is right in the downtown core. All downtown cores where you have a drop-in center right there and a hospital right there and a SkyTrain center right there are going to have a concentration of people. It's definitely increased here and in every other city in the Lower Mainland, and I think that Richmond is doing an excellent job of keeping our city safe and managing all of these things, and we're going to continue to do that, and I hope it will improve. And this is city-owned land, and it's going to be used for affordable housing, regardless of whether this temporary modular housing is there or not. So that's our city center. Thank you.
No. Councillor Au.
Your Worship, I'm not going to repeat everything I said last time, but I want to point out the fact that we are in a very unfortunate situation that we have to consider extending the lease at this site. And if BC Housing has done a better job, and if they have planned and take action much earlier, perhaps they would already find a permanent place to relocate these people. And the current site can be used for other purposes to cater for the other needs that we have in the community. So it's very unfortunate that we are in this kind of situation. I think this is not a question about whether or not we are compassionate to the people who are homeless. As I said last time, it's very easy to become homeless right now in the current economic situation. Even a mid-range income earner, they can become homeless within a few months after they have lost their job, if they don't have a saving or if they have other kind of support. So it's not about whether or not we are compassionate to these people. I think the other aspect of it, whether or not we have taken the experience of the people in the area seriously enough. I understand that perhaps, for people who have seen this day in, day out for a long time, they might be desensitized to it. But for people who are living in a real life life experience day in, day out, and when they have to see this almost every day, I think it's their life experience. And I think we have to be empathetic to that too. And I will support the motion, it comes later, that we have to tighten up the management of the neighborhood. However, I also have to point out that this has been promised to the people before, 4 years ago. It's been promised. So we are going back to the same place, saying that we're going to tighten up the management or the monitoring. Now, I have to point out one thing. Actually, in most cases, as we receive those emails and other letters, in most cases, it's not the people living at the site who are causing the problem. It's the people coming into this area from the outside that has caused the problem. So it's not a matter of the local residents fighting against those who are living in the temporary modular housing. It's actually, the people who are coming from outside causing most of the trouble. I think the people living in the neighborhood is a legitimate concern. It's real. The fact that, they have to pay more, pay the cost of repairs, they have to pay more for the insurance, and they have to pay more for the security. I think those are real issues, and that should not be minimized, dismissed, or ignored. I think we have to tell BC Housing that they have to do a better job. We don't want, or at least I don't want them to come back again and again saying that, okay, we missed the target and we have to ask for extension again and again. So I think we have to tell BC Housing that they have to be accountable. They have to keep their words. If they're serious about helping the city to solve the homelessness problem, I think they have to live up to their words. So I will still go against the motion for extension, not because I'm not compassionate to the people and their needs, but I want BC Housing to know that they have to be accountable as well. They have to take up their responsibility.
Councillor Day.
Well, I was hoping we would have a unanimous vote tonight. I don't agree with Councillor Au. I don't think displacing 40 more people is going to make anything better in the neighborhood. And if we want to make BC Housing step up, then let's meet with them. Let's have them come here and sit in these chairs and explain what's going on. But I do have a question of staff with regards to when we did the original agreement. There was supposed to be a committee that would work with, all the partners, especially the neighbors. And I understand there was some trouble keeping that going. Can you give me any kind of update of where we're at with that?
Through your worship to Councillor Day, the Community Advisory Committee was formed and I guess the first meeting was held in February of 2019. Meetings continued until I believe the last meeting was March of 2022. Attendees or members of the committee included the city, community social development and community bylaws, Rain City, BC Housing, Fire Rescue, RCMP, and Vancouver Coastal Health. The meeting or the committee was created to develop relationships amongst those that would be working together and to also offer opportunities for the neighborhood to bring any concerns forward and also to discuss and kind of information share. This is consistent with other supportive housing buildings that BC Housing creates with municipalities. So these community advisory committees are created and they usually run for approximately 1 year. They're funded by BC Housing with a facilitator. The one in Richmond ran for an extended period of time. It was held to ensure that that collaboration was happening and that information was happening. Attendance kind of from and concerns being brought forth from the community were not there, and the committee was disbanded. Information sharing was happening directly with the operator, so concerns were going directly to the operator, and the operator, Rain City, was responding to those concerns. There were also concerns if they were coming into the city. They were being responded by city staff in conjunction working with the operator and when need be with the RCMP. So that relationship amongst the committee members continued. It was strong. It was it is very collaborative, and staff are in regular communication with the operator when concerns come up.
So what do you think it would take to get the community members, the ones, for instance, that are here tonight? I mean, they're obviously care enough to be here, to get those people to attend a meeting and be part of the solution?
Through your worship to Councillor Day, I believe that we could look at having a committee and having those concerns that are within the neighborhood to come forth. I think it's important, though, that those that are members of the committee, the professional agencies, need to come together to discuss and collaborate about what some potential opportunities to look at what concerns are being brought forward and how we can collaborate and see some better improvement to the area.
Perfect. So like we had Sarvan come up and say, we need to know the measurements in place to deal with these issues that they're having. And Caden said that if someone's caught doing a crime, they shouldn't be allowed to live there. They should be evicted. Sheldon talked about a Riverview model needed, and Yan talked about wanting to work together. And maybe if we could connect all of these agencies better with the residents, we could all work together to solve these problems. And I wonder if it isn't time to do a major outreach and see if we can't get those residents to get involved with the powers that be, the BC Housing and all of the support that is there for the residents. Because I think that would make a big difference if they could start to see some solutions, because we don't want to do nothing for the next 2 or 3 years. What do you think?
Through your worship to Councillor Day, I believe that there's some discussions that need to take place and some facilitated discussions about what the concerns are that are being brought forth and what some potential solutions can be. Again, I think it's also important that those that are member or have been members of the committee and that have expertise in some of these areas around community safety need to come together and have conversations about what can possibly be done to the area. Since the opening of Alderbridge, there has been an increase in homelessness. There has been an increase in, the opioid and the mental health and substance use crisis. So there's numerous things at play here that have changed over the years since Alderbridge opened. And it's not just isolated to the Alderbridge neighborhood. So I believe there's some discussion that needs to happen with those in community safety about what's happening within the area. As was mentioned last week when the OIC spoke about what's happening in terms of community safety, that a lot of those calls for service have come down since the opening of Alderbridge. So I think there's some concerns that are being brought forth. It's just as the city grows and it changes, that need to be addressed. It's not all related to Alderbridge. We are facing concerns in other areas of Richmond. So I think it's something that needs to be looked at from a broader perspective as well.
Yeah. Do you think that more outreach workers would be helpful?
Through your worship to Councillor Day, I believe that with the increase in homelessness, yes, outreach is important in our community.
Well, you know, as I read some of these emails that were forwarded from people, and this fellow writes to Fabrica Riascos, the program manager, and when asking about someone that was loitering, she said he's barred from our building. So it's got nothing to do with modular. Another one, again, the writer asks about trespassing onto the property. And then the same person, manager, writes back, we'll talk to him and let him know he's barred if he gets caught doing anything. And then one of the things that they asked about was the importance of having a negative presence in the neighborhood. We will not allow them to visit the building if they are a negative presence in the neighborhood. So, I mean, it's not like Green City's doing nothing, but we've got to, I think, probably reach out to these people and get them the help that they need. The ones that, the modular housing, they're getting the help. That's why so many of them are recovering and getting better and moving on with their lives. So if we could get more outreach workers out there to help, I think it's going to make a huge difference. And the reality is that the people that are causing the trouble are there because of, to correct me if I'm wrong, like all the services that are available there, like the food bank and the, you know, BC, yes?
Can you bring it to a close, please?
Sure, yeah. So the services that are in the area do attract homeless, correct?
Through your worship to Councillor Day, yes, there are many services within the area that do attract individuals that are looking to access those services.
Yeah, all right, well, thank you very much.
Okay, with that, we're going to call the question, sorry?
I want to add to it.
We'll come back to you. We're going to come back to Councillor Loom, we're going to come back to you. Okay, so we're going to call the question then on the motion that's on the floor. All those in favor? Those opposed? It's carried with Councillor Au opposed. Now, Councillor Liu, you had a referral of some sort?
Just to write a letter to the province, asking them to extend the securing small business rebate to Stratas to help defray the cost of added security in response to theft and vandalism.
I'll second that.
Can you explain that to us, what this rebate is?
So the province has put out a securing small business rebate that they're giving to small businesses to sort of harden their places, deal with broken windows, put films on their windows, added cameras, that sort of thing. So I think it's $5,000 over 2 years that they can get. The details aren't out, but I think we should say that it needs to be expanded to not just small businesses. There's other people that are affected by the increase in theft and vandalism.
Well, so you're increasing it to individuals?
To include stratas.
Okay. Councillor Glanders.
I just have a question about that. Would it be like all stratas or stratas within a certain proximity to a certain rate of crime? Because we were getting letters from other areas of Richmond that have had an increase, like down by Number 1 Road in Terra Nova area. We just they've had a huge crime spree going on in all those stratas. And then also, I mean, people get their backyards broken into all the time and their bikes stolen, and they're not part of a strata. So then why wouldn't personal homeowners get the same thing if we're all affected by crime? So I'm just not sure which stratas would get it and which wouldn't.
I think wherever the province is determining where small business rebates are applicable, then that's where stratas should be applicable.
Could we say to affected stratas and individuals?
Sure.
Okay, that answers the question then. Okay, with that, we'll call the question then on this referral. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Now, Councillor McNulty, you had
I've got a couple of things, and I know it can be discussed more, but I think we have to have some action tonight. And I think, you know, I'm like everybody else.
Just tell us what
I'm frustrated and disappointed. The first one was that we request that Rain City review their existing drug usage policy on its premises and grounds before we sign the agreement with them. So we know what their policy is on it and what they're prepared to do. That's one.
Well, okay, before I get a seconder, you realize that we have approved.
I know,
going
that's
ahead
why I
with the
wanted to put it
extension.
in before, you see.
And secondly, I would ask staff to comment on this. Is not the drug use policy on the building and grounds, isn't that set by the provincial government and BC Housing?
Yes, Your Worship, and through Your Worship to Councillor McNulty. So the agreements that are in place for Alder Bridge is there's an operating agreement between BC Housing and Rain City. And then there's a lease agreement between the city and BC Housing. And then there's an MOU agreement between the city, BC Housing, and Rain City.
Through you, Your Worship, to staff, does that mean Rain City can ignore what's happening around them? Is that part of the agreement?
Through Your Worship to Councillor McNulty, no, the MOU
That's what I'm
sets out
asking for.
standards in terms of operating, and there's also standards and terms within the operating agreement.
Then ask them to live up to it is what I'm getting to. And from my perspective, and having been over there, they're not.
May I suggest, rather than having a motion on this right now,
We'll bring it up
that-
tomorrow, put it on the
that
agenda.
we ask you to dig out what the standards are that are required under the various agreements and give it to us in the form of a memo. And then if probably Community Safety Committee wants more than that, then they can deal with it accordingly.
All right, can I finish the other? The other is, and it's going to take some work with everybody, is to identify the issues, and I mentioned this before, that are not only there, but are out there, but have culminated here. And let us know what services, resources, or programs are available to us to address those issues, and what funding would be requirement for action to mitigate these issues. It's going to take some homework, and I'd like that on it because, yes, we'll discuss it tomorrow at Community Safety, due respect, but it's going to be a month before we get it back to council to get it through, et cetera. And I'm saying as direction tonight.
Wouldn't it be more realistic to ask staff to just advise us as to the services, support services that are available to Rain City and to the residents?
And to us as a council, that we may want to,
Okay.
it
And
was
to the
mentioned
city.
resources, we may want to fund a worker to go in there, for example. I don't know what we'll come up with, but, you know, there may be some opportunity to fund somebody like we have in other areas, that we would contribute to it as well. And if we wait, nothing's going to happen. We need to be proactive. This is a huge issue. We've got to do what we can do.
Okay,
to
I'm just
mitigate.
trying to get the motion. My suggestion is the motion would be asking staff to identify the services that are available to the residents, to Rain City and the City of Richmond in relation to the Alder Bridge site.
Okay, I'll accept that.
Okay, so is that seconded? Okay, so that's seconded. Because once you get that, then you can deal with it.
Yes, okay.
Okay, Councillor Day.
Just to be clear, that would include things like outreach workers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the ticket. That's exactly what we need, because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that need help. They just don't know where to get it.
Okay, we're going to call the question then on the motion. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. All right, that brings us to the Finance and Corporate Services. We have the 2024 Utility Rate Amendment bylaws. And these are the bylaws that simply follow the resolutions that have been passed tonight. May I have a motion? Moved and seconded. Discussion, all those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. That brings us to, excuse me, folks, we're still conducting a meeting here. So that brings us to public announcements. First of all, There's some advisory committee appointments coming from closed council to the Richmond Child Care Development Advisory Committee until December 31st, 2025. That's what all of these are. Karen Jensen, Aaron J. Antonio, and Marianne Baba. To the Richmond Committee on the Environment, Anthony Leung, Carolyn Jimenez, Schneider, Samuel McCulloch, Cynthia Zhao, and Kaylin Mullen. And then to the Richmond Public Library Board, Jennifer Gurvis-Keen, Richie Poe, Ashley Sandhu, Angeline Singh, and Katie Liu. Then we have the draft accessibility plan engagement. Public feedback is requested on the city's draft accessibility plan strategy 2023 to 33. The plan reflects council's commitment to a multi-year strategy that recognizes and supports access for all members of our community to facilities, information programs, and services. A range of engagement opportunities are underway between now and December 3rd, including an online survey, pop-up events, and targeted focus groups. So go to the city website for more details. Then we have the annual blanket drive. The Blanket BC Society is again asking people to support its 13th annual Drive on the Line campaign. On Friday, November 17th and Saturday, November 18th, people can donate blankets at the Bridgeport, Lansdowne, and Richmond Brickhouse Canada Line stations for those in need this winter. Socks, scarves, mittens, and toques are also welcomed as donations. So if you want more information on that, go to blanketbc.org. Then we have International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. And that's Saturday, November 25th. The day aims to prevent and eliminate violence against women and girls around the world through increased awareness, advocacy, and discussion on challenges and solutions. We all have a responsibility in stopping gender-based violence. If you see or hear it, that something is wrong, speak up. We all have a responsibility in stopping that gender-based violence. Anyone in danger should call 911 if you or someone you know is being abused, or if you are concerned about someone's safety, call or text Victim Link BC through its toll-free 24/7 confidential multilingual telephone service. So there is a phone number. Go to Victim Link BC at bc211.ca. And finally, we have the winter program registration. This is a reminder that registration for a range of popular winter programs begins on Tuesday, November 21st. Winter programs are viewable online now, and people can register via the city website. So, Madam Clerk, bylaws for adoption.
Thank you, Your Worship. There are two bylaws for final adoption with no opposition.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Councillor Heed.
I understand that. I just want to draw to the attention, because it will be a referral to community safety, is that we are talking about business licenses for body rub parlors and escort services. And I'll point out, based on my experiences, those are sex trade industries, and I think we need to have a discussion with respect to whether we, as a city that's aware of some of the human trafficking that's going on out there, that we consider whether we want to issue these types of business license. Thank you.
Okay, that's fine to take a look at that, but I do want to remind that certainly for the massage parlors, extensive steps have been taken to safeguard the employees who work there and to prevent some of the abuses that have happened elsewhere. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. And I recognize the steps that are being taken, but I can tell you right now, you can just go onto any website and you can find several massage parlors that we license here in Richmond that have scantily clad women, and you know darn well they're not just given registered massage therapy.
Well, there you go. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. And Development Permit Panel.
Thank you, Your Worship. There's one recommendation that the minutes of the Development Permit Panel meeting held on October 25th, 2023, and the Chair's report for the Development Permit Panel meeting held on January 27th, 2021 be received for information, and that the recommendations of the panel to authorize the issuance of the development permit for the property at 7391 Moffett Road be endorsed and the permit so issued.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor? It's carried, and we're now adjourned.